In this lecture, we are going to set up our development environment for macOS with all the tools that we need to develop smart contracts for Ethereum. We are not going to describe all of them, but focus on those that are widely used by the community. By the way, this video is specifically about setting up your environment on macOS. If you are running on Windows or Linux, there are dedicated lectures for that. Now, our toolbox will be composed of the following tools: Geth, Ganache, Truffle, and Atom. But before we can install those, there are a few prerequisites that we need to deal with. Maybe some of these are already set up on your machine, and in that case you can just skip forward, but in case they are not, we'll show you how to install them. The first tool that we will need is Homebrew. If you are a Mac user, it is highly recommended to use Homebrew. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS X that helps you install and update packages that are not natively provided by macOS, like Node.js and Go Ethereum. Homebrew might already be installed on your Mac. If not, I'm going to show you how to proceed. But before installing Homebrew on your Mac, you have to install Xcode that is available from the App Store. So if you already have Xcode, again, you can skip forward. But if not, you need to install it from the App Store. And to do that, I'll put the link of Xcode in the App Store in the resources of this lecture, but you can also search for it in the App Store. And that's the one you need to install. And just click the install button and wait for it to complete. Now, it's a 5.5 gigabyte package, so it's going to take a while. We'll come back when it's done. Once Xcode is installed, we can go to Applications and start Xcode, which is important because you need to accept the license agreement. Otherwise, Homebrew will refuse to install. Here, I already accepted this license agreement before, so I don't need to do it again. The one thing I need to do, though, is to install command line tools, the Xcode command line tools, because those tools include some compilers and other utilities that are going to be needed for Homebrew to do its job. So I will just quit Xcode, open a terminal, and type xcode-select-install. And here it's telling me that command line tools are already installed, so I don't need to install them again. But otherwise, you should see confirmation dialog where you need to click OK and then go through the installation of all the command line tools. Once this is done, now we can finally install Homebrew. And to do that, you need to go to brew.sh. Again, I'll add all the links to those sites in the description of this lesson. And here in the middle of the page, you have a command that we need to copy and paste in a terminal. You can run this. I need to input my administrator password. Now it's downloading and installing Homebrew. I close the browser for now. And in the end, you should see this message, installation successful. Now, just to be sure, I will clean up my terminal a little bit and just type brew-version to check which version I have. You should have the latest one normally. Now that Homebrew is installed, let's use it to install Geth. Now, Geth, or Go Ethereum, is the command line interface that allows you to run and operate a full Ethereum node. Geth is implemented in Go and allows you to mine blocks, to generate Ether, to deploy and interact with smart contracts, to transfer funds, to inspect block history, to create accounts, and do all the things that are needed for managing an Ethereum node. Geth can be used to connect to the public Ethereum network, also called the mainnet, or to create your own private network for development purposes, which we will demonstrate later during this course. The benefit of using Geth in your development process is to let you fully test your application before deploying it to the live network. On a Mac, the best way to install Geth is using Homebrew, which we just installed before. The first thing we have to do is to connect Homebrew to the repository providing Geth. To do that, I will just run brew update to update the package catalog for Homebrew. And then I will brew tap Ethereum/Ethereum to add the Ethereum repository to the package catalog. And once this is done, I can just run brew install Ethereum. In my case, I already had Ethereum 1.7.3 installed. At any point in time, if you already have Ethereum installed, or any Homebrew package for that matter, the only thing you need to do to upgrade is just to type brew upgrade and the name of the package. So always make sure that you have the latest version of Ethereum, of Geth in that case. That's important. And we'll start using Geth in the next lecture when we create our first private node. The second tool we need to install is Ganache. Now, Ganache is an Ethereum blockchain emulator that you can use for development purposes. Ganache can be seen as a replacement for TestRPC, which we used in previous versions of this course. And the strength of Ganache is its UI that allows you to inspect blocks and transactions in a much more user-friendly way. Compared to Geth, Ganache is an in-memory Ethereum node that runs faster and provides all the visual components you need to test your contracts locally before deploying them to a real Ethereum implementation. So you can download a package to install Ganache from Truffle framework/Ganache. And normally the website should detect which operating system you are on and adapt this button accordingly. Now we noticed that there is an issue with the very latest version, the one that was released just last night, which is 1.02. So instead of installing the latest version, we'll install version 1.01, which we know works. And to do that, I actually need to go to GitHub/Truffle suite/Ganache. Again, the link will be in the description. And here I can go to releases. I will not install 1.02 and I will stick with 1.01. And here you can see we have different packages and I'm going to use the DMG one for macOS. So all I need to do is to download this archive, open it up when it's downloaded, and then install it like any other Mac application. Okay, so I'm opening the DMG package. And there, all I need to do is to drag and drop Ganache to the applications folder. Then when it's done, I go to the applications directory and Ganache is right there. Let's run it the first time. And the first time we run it, macOS X will warn us that this is not signed, that this is from an unidentified developer and we need to accept it. So first I accept it. And actually here it starts right away because I already had authorized it. If you get a warning saying that you should modify your security settings, then you click OK and you go to System Preferences, Security and Privacy. And in the General tab, you should have a button here that says Open Anyway. And then you can click this button and it will start Ganache right away. Let's clean things up a little bit. This one goes down. Okay. So this is the user interface for Ganache. Now let's review some of its main features. When you start Ganache, it starts a new Ethereum node in memory on network identifier 5777, which you can see in this part of the screen. It also creates 10 accounts and puts 100 ethers on each account. Now, contrary to what happened with TestRPC before, Ganache always creates the same accounts, uses the same mnemonic. So the first screen you see is the accounts view, and it lists all the accounts with their details. At the top of the screen, it also shows the current block, which is the number of the last block that was mined, the gas price, the gas limit for each block, the network identifier, the URL of the RPC endpoint, and the mining status. Now the gas price is the minimum gas price this node requires on transaction to mine them. The gas limit is the maximum gas this node is willing to accept per block. The network ID, well, is just the network identifier. RPC server is the host and port of the RPC endpoint this node is listening to. The mining status is very important because in the case of Ganache, it starts as auto mining by default. So by default, this fake node only mines a new block when it receives a new transaction, which is completely different from what real nodes would do, since a normal node would mine a new block at regular intervals, whether there are pending transactions or not. You can disable auto mining, come back to a more normal behavior, and even set a mining block time in the settings. We'll show you how to do that later. And finally, this mnemonic corresponds to the seed words that are used to generate the wallet of 10 accounts. And this one is the same by default on all installations. Then you can see a list of 10 accounts generated by Ganache with the following information: the wallet address of the account, its balance with only 2 decimals, the number of transactions that were sent by this account, the index of the account in the list of accounts, and finally a button to show the private key. And this will be very practical to import the accounts later in MetaMask. Then you've got the blocks tab, and here you can see all the blocks that are mined by the node. And of course, since we just started it, we can only see the Genesis block, and it doesn't contain any transaction. In the Transactions tab, we can see a list of all the transactions, and there aren't any for now. And in the Logs tab, we can see the console log of the node. There's also a search field where you can search transactions and blocks by their numbers or hashes. And finally, there's the Settings button that gives you access to the settings. So here you can change the host name, the port number, and the network identifier. We actually use that part quite often. You can also change the way that the miner works. By default, it's auto mine, but you can also deactivate auto mining and just specify a mining block time. We'll leave auto mining on. Accounts and keys allows you to set the number of accounts that are generated, and also the mnemonic that is used as a seed for the account generation. In chain, we can specify a custom gas limit and gas price. And in advanced, we can enable or disable Google Analytics. And that's it. The only thing you have to remember is that whenever you change something, when you change something in settings, you have to save and restart to make sure that the new settings are taken into account. Here we'll just cancel. Okay, let's close Ganache for now. The next thing we need to install is Node.js and NPM. Now, Node.js is a server-side JavaScript platform to create applications that will interact with your Ethereum node. When we install Node.js, we also install the Node Package Manager, or NPM, that is required to set up most of the tools and libraries required to develop for Ethereum. To check if Node.js and NPM are already installed on your machine, you can go to the terminal and run node-v and npm-v. So here we can see that Node 930 is already installed on this machine, and npm 560 is already installed. If you have older versions of those tools, you should upgrade to this, at least this version, because we tested all our content with these versions, so we can't guarantee that older versions will work. So if you still remember how you installed Node.js, because there are many ways, then you should use the same technique to upgrade. If you don't remember, or if you want to start from a clean installation, here is a link that you can use to see documentation about how to completely clean up your system, remove all traces of Node.js and NPM, and then we'll be able to reinstall it from scratch. Basically, all that's required to install Node.js on a new system is to run brew install node. And this will install Node.js and NPM in the latest version available in Homebrew. So here it's telling me that 930 is already installed. The next tool we need to install is Truffle 4. Now, to compile, test, and deploy your smart contracts, you will need a build framework that will increase your development velocity compared to doing it manually. We'll demonstrate that later in this course. In this course, we demonstrate the use of Truffle 4, which you can find on this website, truffleframework.com. This version of Truffle embeds Truffle Develop a development blockchain that you can use to speed up your automated testing and your development lifecycle. In this course, we'll use both a personal Ethereum node provided by Ganache and Truffle developed to let you decide which one will be more suitable for you. If you have a previous version of Truffle, please uninstall it before. If you have Truffle 3, you need to remove it from your system, otherwise it will collide with the new version. So in the terminal, to remove Truffle, you can run npm install -g Truffle. And this will remove the old version of Truffle. And then to install the new version, we'll run npm install -g Truffle, but instead of installing the latest version, we'll install version 4.04. The goal of this is to avoid any breaking change in newer versions that might not work with this course content. And once it's done, you can run Truffle version to check which version is installed. And here you can see I have version 4.04 and version 0.418 of the Solidity JavaScript compiler. If you see a message about check permissions missing write access to user local lib node modules, the most likely reason is that you installed Node.js with the installable package from the Node.js website, and this does not set the permissions on your system in the right way. And this is a link of the documentation that you can use to fix npm permissions. Once you have fixed these permissions, you can try again to install Truffle with the same command, and it should be good. The last step of this lecture is to install a text editor that will be used to edit our smart contracts and other text files. At this point in time, unfortunately, we don't have a real Ethereum IDE. You can find some plugins for IntelliJ, WebStorm, or Microsoft Visual Studio, but not a full IDE covering all the development chain. But that's not a big deal, because we have some interesting free text editors that are good enough for what we want to show here. In this course, we chose to use Atom because it's freely available for Mac, Windows, and Linux. But of course, you are free to use the one that you are more familiar with. To install Atom, you can just go to this website, github.com/atom/atom. And here you go to releases. We won't install the beta version, but instead we'll install the latest stable release. And that's 123.2. Here we have packages for a lot of different operating systems. We are on a Mac, so we'll install the Atom Mac.zip. So I'm downloading this file. Again, it might take a while because it's 129 megabytes. And once the package has been downloaded, we can open it and simply drag and drop to the applications directory. Once it is there, we can start it up the first time, confirm the opening, and voila. Now in the Atom menu, you will find a special menu item called Install Shell Commands. This is required to install the Atom and APM commands in the terminal, and that would be very useful. So here it confirms that the shell commands Atom and APM are installed. I can quit Atom for now, go back to the terminal, and I will use APM to install the Atom plugin to support the Solidity language. So APM install language Ethereum. And this just installed the extension in Atom for Solidity support. Now at this stage, we have all the tools that we need to start developing our smart contracts on a Mac. You can quit Atom, Ganache, Terminal, and all the running tools. We'll start using them when we need them. In the next lecture, we will show you how to set up and start a private Ethereum node.